The president unfiltered.
There was no collusion. There was no obstruction.
Donald Trump weighs in on the probe into his campaign and many other topics in a freewheeling session with reporters at the White House. Providing comfort. More in-depth reporting from Mexico. Our Lauren Ashburn introduces us to Catholic nuns who are helping migrants seeking asylum. Healing mission. Vatican envoys meet with Catholics in Chile who are at the center of the country's clergy sex abuse scandal. And a glove story. Last night's congressional baseball game featured a very emotional opening play. On EWTN News Nightly for Friday, June 15th, 2018. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you for joining us for News from a Catholic Perspective. I'm Wyatt Goolsby. President Trump surprises reporters at the White House with an impromptu news conference. The president covered a wide range of topics, from blaming Democrats for driving immigrant families apart to claiming the FBI plotted against his election. White House correspondent Mark Irons joins us with more. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Wyatt. That press conference took place just a few feet from where I'm standing here on the White House North Lawn. We were able to hear the president's thoughts on many issues, including his widely criticized immigration policy.
The children can be taken care of quickly, beautifully, and immediately. The Democrats forced that law upon our nation.
President Trump admits he wants tough immigration laws, but says they should be humane. He's under fire for his administration's zero-tolerance policy, which can separate children from their parents who illegally enter the U.S. at the southern border.
I hate it. I hate to see separation of parents and children. The Democrats can come to us as they actually are. In all fairness, we are talking to them, and they can change the whole border security. We need a wall. We need border security.
The president also defended his comments on North Korea's dictator. In their summit in Singapore, President Trump called Kim Jong-un talented and said he loves his people.
You're defending now Kim Jong-un's human rights records. How can you do that?
You know why? Because I don't want to see a nuclear weapon destroy you and your family.
The president says he has a very good relationship with Kim.
I told him, I gave him a very direct number. He can now call me if he has any difficulty. I can call him. We have communication. It's a very good thing.
President Trump is also disputing findings by the Justice Department that former FBI Director James Comey's handling of the Hillary Clinton email probe was not politically motivated. He says the FBI was biased, and the Inspector General's report discredits the Russia probe.
The report yesterday, maybe more importantly than anything, it totally exonerates me. There was no collusion.
One of the people charged in the wake of the investigation is the president's former campaign manager, Paul Manafort. Today, a judge ordered Manafort to report to jail. He's accused of trying to get witnesses to lie about their involvement in the case while he was on house arrest. Wyatt?
Good thing you and our White House team were there for this impromptu press conference with President Trump. White House correspondent Mark Irons reporting. Thanks, Mark. President Trump says he will not sign a Republican bill on immigration. That has sent the GOP scrambling as they attempt to bridge the wide divide between moderates and conservatives in their own party. Correspondent Jason Calvi reports from Capitol Hill. Jason?
Good evening, Wyatt. President Trump seemed to back away from his comments, but a GOP House leader says the vote plan for next week is now being reconsidered. Conservative Republicans worry the bill amounts to amnesty. That's because it includes a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, those immigrants brought to the United States illegally as children.
I am American in every way, except on paper. And there are hundreds of thousands of others in the same shoes. This is why it is imperative for Congress to take action by creating a permanent solution for dreamers and ultimately passing comprehensive immigration reform.
But Representative Jeff Fortenberry, a Catholic from Nebraska, tells me passing immigration reform isn't that easy. He says it requires a balance of justice and charity, and that charity cannot flow from chaos.
Our impulse is to be generous. The hallmark of America is a vibrant immigration system, but you have to have the absorptive capacity, a values alignment, in order for immigration to actually be just, both for those who want to come as well as people who are already here.
The GOP compromise would allow dreamers to apply to stay in the United States for renewable 6-year periods with a path to citizenship. It also pumps $25 billion into border security, and that includes the wall. The GOP bill also would allow children to stay with parents arrested by Border Patrol. President Trump's backing is crucial. A GOP leader says his party is asking the White House to clarify the president's remarks on the bill he made this morning. Wyatt?
Correspondent Jason Calvi reporting from Capitol Hill. Thanks, Jason. As Washington debates policy, we continue our in-depth look at immigration. Our Lauren Ashburn is visiting a Mexico City shelter supported by Catholic Relief Services. The group is putting into action the Holy Father's call for empathy towards migrants and refugees. Lauren?
Wyatt, today we are in northern Mexico City. We are at Cafe Min, which is a shelter for people who are seeking asylum or refugee status here in Mexico. It is run by the Josephine Sisters and used to be a former convent. These sisters here have seen a lot and have helped many people who are victims of human trafficking. This is Sister Magdalena, or Magda. Every year, she and other Josephine sisters bring comfort to 2,000 to 3,000 migrants fleeing gang violence and poverty in Central America. Many have escaped human traffickers who hoped to sell them.
We didn't have anything to eat. We were robbed.
We have been asked to shield their identities.
I stood between them and my wife, and I told him he could not take my wife. And this kid stood next to me, and he said, "You can't take my mom away from me."
And relying on their faith in God to protect them.
We are learning that Jesus Christ is our Lord, and we are teaching our kids to trust that God fulfills His promises.
These brave boys and dozens of others fill their days coloring the apostles and playing made-up games with other children. Cafe Min, in partnership with Catholic Relief Services, only allows women, families, and unaccompanied children. They can stay for 3 months. These girls don't have fathers. One died of cancer. The others? Killed by a Honduran gang. Parents are taught skills like cooking and how to master computers to help them get jobs in Mexico. Children attend school. What is the government of Mexico doing to keep people here?
Nada.
Sister Magda says the Mexican government tries to persuade people to go home. The shelter works with immigration lawyers in Mexico to help them gain asylum. Sean Callahan is Catholic Relief Services president. For 75 years, CRS has helped refugees in Mexico. There are 43 programs like this one.
In this particular center, they also try to integrate people into the local community and allow them to get jobs so that they don't have to migrate further to the border. About 2.5 years ago or so, the U.S. started to push down into Mexico a little bit more the intervention of the government and pushing the local governments, the Mexico government, Salvadorian, Guatemalan and Honduran governments to try to intervene there so that the problem didn't come to the border. So a lot of that continues to occur down in this area of the world.
Is it working?
No, it's not working. As I talk to the sister in our programs in this area, more and more people seem to be coming now, and it really isn't dependent on our policies. It's dependent on the violence in the countries in which they're coming.
Despite water leaking inside and leftover earthquake debris outside, many tell me this is a piece of heaven on earth. Cafe Min receives support from the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the Mexican government, the German embassy, and CRS, Catholic Relief Services, which is celebrating its 75th anniversary. But the majority of funding comes from private donations. Wyatt.
Lauren Ashburn reporting from Mexico City. We thank Lauren and our team who have been in Mexico the whole week. Lauren will be back next week with more stories. Be sure to follow her on Facebook and Twitter for even more videos and photos of her visit. A little earlier, we told you about a new report by the Justice Department's internal watchdog. It says text messages between two FBI employees cast a cloud over the agency's investigation into Democrat Hillary Clinton's emails. The report blamed former FBI Director James Comey for his handling of the probe and cited anti-Trump communications sent by 3 other unnamed FBI employees. But it found no political bias in the FBI's final conclusions. Joining me now is Republican Congressman Ron DeSantis from Florida. He's a member of the House Judiciary Committee, and he's running for the governor of Florida. Representative DeSantis, welcome back to the program.
Great to be here.
President Trump calls the IG report a disaster. Does it reinforce the perception of a political bias within the FBI, in your view?
Well, very much so, at least as it relates to President Trump, then candidate Trump, and now President Trump. I think the number one upshot, though, is that the president's decision to fire Comey was wholly justified. I supported it from the beginning because I think Comey should not have been the FBI director. But this is a Democrat. Michael Horowitz, the IG, has a reputation for fairness, basically showing that Comey thought he could live by whatever rules he wanted to. And that's very dangerous. So the notion that you're going to have an obstruction of justice Mueller investigation to somehow hold Trump accountable for firing somebody that the IG effectively said should be fired is ridiculous. And I think that aspect needs to be shut down. We need to move on. But you also do have the bias. The main text message that was so explosive was Lisa Page texting Peter Strzok, the head of counterintelligence, ran the Clinton investigation, ran the Trump-Russia collusion investigation. She says, "Oh my gosh, Trump can't be president, can he? And Strzok responds, says, no, he won't. We will stop him," meaning the FBI will stop him. That was August 6th, 2016, a week after the same Peter Strzok opened up a counterintelligence investigation against Trump's campaign, and a week before, he texted Lisa Page saying that we can't take the risk of a Trump presidency and we need an insurance policy. So I think the bias that infected this whole Russia collusion thing has tainted this investigation beyond repair, and I think both the obstruction and the collusion aspects need to be stopped, and we just need to move on.
Okay, so then noting that, do you think then the report adds pressure to wrap up the Mueller investigation faster? I mean, it has been more than a year now.
It's been longer than that. When you think about this investigation started at least in the spring of 2016 under Comey. Remember, Comey met with Lynch and McCabe, and these guys were saying, well, should we tell Trump that we're concerned about this guy who's on like some advisory committee with the Russian contacts? They decided to withhold that from the candidate. They did not tell Trump that. So really, we've been doing this for over 2 years, from the Comey investigation and then when Mueller took it over. And how much evidence do we have of campaign collusion between Trump's campaign and the Russian government? You got squat. So yes, I think that it's clear that he doesn't have the goods. If he's got the goods, show the goods. If not, let's move on.
Okay, very good. Congressman Ron DeSantis, Republican from Florida, thanks so much for talking with us.
Thank you.
The Trump administration is escalating a trade dispute between the world's 2 largest economies. The White House today announced a 25% tariff on $50 billion worth of imports from China. China's government responded quickly by announcing it will immediately impose penalties of equal strength on U.S. products. It's also scrapping deals to buy more American farm goods. Representatives from the Vatican meet with Catholics in Chile. The faithful in Osorno are protesting against the former bishop. They say he was appointed despite allegations he covered up abuse claims. Archbishop Charles Scicluna and Monsignor Jordi Bertomeu listen to parishioners. It's part of the Vatican's effort to bring healing to the region. Publicly funded hospitals in Ireland will be required to perform abortions, even if they are Catholic. The nation's prime minister says individual medical professionals can opt out. An online survey found nearly 70% of healthcare professionals in Ireland are unwilling to perform abortions. For more on this story, visit our news partners at CatholicNewsAgency.com. A blow to the Taliban, a U.S. drone strike killed the militant group's Pakistan chief. Officials confirm he and 2 other insurgents died Thursday near the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan. The terror group is agreeing in the meantime to a 3-day ceasefire with the Afghan government. President Ghani is asking for a longer pause in the fighting so that there is no more bloodshed. but the Taliban says it wants to talk with U.S. officials before sitting down with Afghan leaders. The ceasefire began last night. Muslims in the Philippines are celebrating the end of Ramadan. The city of Marawi, seen here, was devastated last year by Islamic militants. The holiday was celebrated in the local mosque. The Muslim area of the majority Catholic country remains under martial law. Coming up, we hear from the Palestinian ambassador to the Vatican. And ahead of the midterm elections, the Democrats celebrate a different kind of victory against Republicans. Welcome back. I'm Wyatt Goolsby, in for Lauren Ashburn. In January of 2017, Palestinians fulfilled a dream, opening an embassy at the Holy See. More than a year later, Ambassador Issa Kassisieh has met the Holy Father. The Vatican formally recognized the state of Palestine in 2015. Earlier this week, Vatican correspondent Juliet Lindley sat down with the ambassador to ask him about rising tensions between Arabs and Israelis and his reaction to the recent violence in the Gaza Strip.
Very negative. And since then, I think we had more than 140 Palestinian kids were killed. More than 14,000 Palestinians were injured. The situation is so deteriorating. People lost their hope in peace. They're in despair. And he is weakening the voice of my president, Mahmoud Abbas. He is weakening the voice of the moderates. Unfortunately, Trump and his entourage used wrongly religious arguments, to justify their illegal unilateral steps.
You've been ambassador for almost 5 years to the Holy See now. These have been very tumultuous years in the Middle East. What role do you think the Holy See can play in trying to broker peace in your region?
Pope Francis always held the moral stand toward our cause, and we hope from him that he speaks out more vocal when it comes to Jerusalem, and I tell His Holiness that Jerusalem must not be exclusive for one side at the expense of others, and this is his duty with other world church leaders to make a point that what Trump has done is wrong, and Jerusalem is all ours. And in the Holy Land, we Christians, our numbers are dwindling. You see immigration by Palestinian Christians because of this very difficult political economic situation.
Ambassador, no one would have expected that just a couple of days ago, President Trump would have shaken hands with Kim Jong-un of North Korea. Who knows? Perhaps, against your expectations, perhaps President Trump will do something and he'll manage to broker a peace deal with Israel between you.
Our land, we call it a land of miracles. We have there the three prophets, and there it's a mosaic, so everything is possible. But if President Trump would continue with his unilateral policies against the international legitimacy, international resolutions, against the voice of the world, then we are closer and closer to deepening the circle of bloodshed. And this we don't want to see. We're so tired. I'm so worried about my children. I suffered the occupation. I don't want to see my son facing the same problem, and the same for the Israelis. Let us make peace, but peace starts with the right requirements of peace. And it's all about ending occupation, sticking to international resolutions, respecting our dignity and our national aspiration.
Ambassador Issa Kassisieh, Palestinian ambassador to the Holy See, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you, Juliet, so much.
Thank you.
Up next, a mayor from a town in northern France gives us his take on Europe's migrant crisis and the state of the Catholic Church in his homeland. Plus, a handshake deal between Republicans and Democrats, but not on Capitol Hill. Welcome back. I'm Wyatt Goolsby, in for Lauren Ashburn. Catholics in Northern Virginia are concerned after a school district votes to change its sexual education curriculum. The wording now includes phrases like gender identity. The change comes despite opposition from the Diocese of Arlington. One priest says what we want the kids to learn is biology, not ideology. The leaders of France and Italy find common ground after a rift over migration. President Emmanuel Macron and Giuseppe Conte have agreed to work together to make changes to the European Union's migration rules. They also called for steps to beef up border security. Macron has been critical of Italy's refusal to accept a rescue ship carrying more than 600 migrants. Joining me now is Mayor Francois de Coster, mayor of Saint-Omer, France. He's also represented his country at the European Union and has served as a diplomatic advisor. Mayor de Coster, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
President Macron is accusing Italy of not doing enough when it comes to migrants. Italy's interior minister says France is not taking in all the migrants they have promised. How, in general, do you think France is dealing with the migrant crisis, and what do the French people make of the situation?
The EU is trying to solve the problem, but it needs to be really put into force by the member states. And what is my role as a mayor and a member of the Committee of the Regions of the European Union is to say that there's no choice. We have to coordinate our responsibility. There's a strong feeling that we need a European solidarity. That is to say that obviously we have to understand both the countries that welcome the migrants when they enter the European continent, but we have also to help the countries and the territories, and my town is one of those territories where the migrants will go through to go to England, for example, or to some other countries.
I want to switch gears because France has seen an uptick in lone wolf terror attacks in recent years. We were following in 2016 when a Catholic priest was killed while he was saying Mass. What has the impact of the attack and other attacks been like, and what is the mood in France right now with regards to terrorism?
We are in a situation where the risks are high, but we have to live with those risks, and we can live with them. I mean, it's a matter of being well organized. The army is in the streets, but in the same time, I mean, we can live the way we want to live, because the last thing we should do is really refrain ourselves. I wouldn't describe the situation as a crisis. This is a situation we are facing, and I think we are well organized. This is once again a situation where we have to coordinate our efforts at the European level, but also with the US. And this is important. The coordination among the NATO allies is critical also on that issue, and we are doing well.
You're here in the United States promoting a group, the Foundation for Transatlantic Values. It's a new group, and it supports a return to Catholic education. Tell us more about the foundation and what your goal is.
It's all rooted in our history in Saint-Omer, because it happened that for about 2 centuries we welcomed in the 17th and 18th centuries an English Jesuit college. And in this college we welcome children coming from the Americas. Catholic families, namely from the Maryland, will send their children to be educated by those English Jesuits based in Saint-Omer. So, because they were looking for a Catholic education that they could not find at the time in the American colonies of the United Kingdom. And the last generation of those children actually took part in the very foundation of the United States. Such characters of importance like John Cabell, the first bishop, the first archbishop of the United States, actually was a student in Saint-Omer. And he founded then Georgetown University, and that's the reason why we have so close ties with Georgetown University.
Well, it's interesting to hear about the rich history of Saint-Omer, and obviously you guys have been traveling around places like Annapolis and Baltimore to promote this foundation, so we really appreciate your time and stopping by here. Mayor Francois de Coster, Mayor of Saint-Omer, France, thanks so much.
Thanks for inviting.
And finally tonight, Democrats record a big victory over Republicans on the baseball field, but last night belonged to Congressman Steve Scalise. One year after being shot, the Louisiana Republican and Catholic played on the congressional baseball game. The first ball was hit to him, and he recorded the putout. It thrilled his teammates and the crowd at Nationals Park, but the Democrats ended the night happier. They won 21-5. The charity game dates from 1909. And that does it for us for tonight. We want to wish all of our fathers, grandfathers, and godfathers out there a happy Father's Day this weekend. That includes my own dad back in Texas. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Wyatt Goolsby. We're back here on Monday with more news from a Catholic perspective. Good night, and God bless.